Hey everybody, welcome. It's just me today. I decided that today is going to be the day that I'm going to finally do the testimony video. I tried doing it last night. It was getting late. I got to rambling. And finally I decided I just need to get to bed. So today, Curtis is out with the children shopping, and I wrote some notes this time so that hopefully I'm not rambling. If I do, forgive me. There's just so much to share. But anyway, we're just going to get right down to it. But before I do, I just wanted to thank you all for watching our daily blogs. I'm loving the comments that you're sending, and just knowing that you are getting a blessing from watching. And we are going to actually change things up a little bit with the daily blogs. There's only so much watching of us eating oatmeal and morning walks and shopping and doing laundry and cleaning that you're going to be able to do. So Curtis and I have been talking about it, and we are really going to add some more content. I talked about it before, but really going to start getting into talking about various issues and different ways that we do things in our home and why we're so unique. And some of those things we're going to talk about our diet, a little more about our diet, why we chose a vegan diet, why we eat only 2 meals a day, why I don't allow the children to snack. Another interesting one is why we don't use onions and garlic. I don't know if you noticed that in the recipes and in the videos that I never add onion and garlic to meals that clearly look like they need it. But we will get into that one day. And there's a young lady that's been watching our videos that's asking us about modesty and dress, and why the girls and I don't, we only wear dresses and skirts. And we'll talk more about that. We'll get into that. And we'll talk about homeschooling, different things about our homeschooling and other things about child rearing and the way we worship. And there's just a whole list of things that we can get into. And whatever you're interested in, what you'd like to know, please let us know and we will get right on it. I know a lot of the things, well, I don't know about a lot, but there's going to be some things that you may disagree with, that I'll be opening up a can of worms with, but I really feel compelled that this is the way, this is God's way, this is what our experience, and we want to share that experience with you. So I thank you so much for watching. I hope you continue, and I really hope that today's video will be a blessing for you. To begin with, I was born in Buffalo, New York, and I was born to an alcoholic father, and I just never really saw him too much. He spent a lot of time in his room. That's the only thing I really remember. And there were a couple of times where I remember him being physically abusive, but thankfully, my mom says that he was quite abusive, but I don't remember that, and I do believe that God actually took those memories from me. When I was 7, Mom took us out, and she ended up becoming a single mom. And I think she really did the level best that she could with what she had. And she worked very, very hard to take care of us. When I was 8 the next year, she met a guy, and I was really, actually Tammy and I and my sister, we were really excited by the fact that he loved her and he loved us, and he was not abusive, he was not an alcoholic. So when his job moved him to Virginia, my mom packed us up and we went with him. And when we got to Virginia, I loved it. I loved the area. I loved the weather. About 2 years after we got there, my stepfather died. He had a heart attack. He was only 36. And that's actually when the troubles began in our home. Mom was very overwhelmed. She was mourning. We started fighting a lot more, my sister and I. Mom was getting more easily irritated with us. And that's when I started actually seeing myself gaining weight. I was only 10 years old, and that was one thing my mom knew too, was to comfort us or to make us feel better about things or make us not be upset anymore, was to feed us. And she's a good cook too. So I just remember gaining weight. And during that time, right after my dad died, my mom, she started we never really went to church much in Buffalo, but she started going to church more often and reading her Bible and trying to have devotions with us. But that didn't last very long. She stopped going, but she would find church members to take us to church. So we checked out various churches, and eventually we ended up at the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And not only did I get baptized on December 24th, 1983, it was a very special day for me, but also my sister and my mom were baptized. And in that very brief time, things really started looking up for our family. But shortly after that, my mom started falling away. She started questioning some of the doctrines. After we were baptized, I found out about boarding academy and the Adventist Academy, and I truly believe that God was the one that made a way for me to be there, and I ended up being in that academy. And I really feel like He allowed me to be there to move away from the chaos and the lack of peace in our home, so that He could really reach out to me and that He could speak to me. And I felt His presence there at the academy at that time like I had not ever felt Him before. And I specifically remember one evening right before bed just completely just weeping, and kind of relief and joy at the same time, and just giving my heart solely to Him. And I truly believe that a lot of that came from the influence of a dear sweet lady that was at the school at the time. Her name was Jean Strickland, and she was like my second mom, and she helped me through so much there, and I just felt such peace there. And while I was there, I learned more about the Adventist health. Their what do you call it? Their health message. That's what I wanted to say. I learned about their health message, and I learned that the Bible says we're supposed to eat clean meats as opposed to unclean meats, and we're not supposed to consume caffeine or drink alcohol. There were other things, but there wasn't really much more that I had learned about that. That was about the extent of it. So at the time, I was still gaining weight. Well, actually, at that time, I was gaining weight up to the point where I was in academy, and then in academy, I kind of stayed steady. I wasn't gaining or losing because they didn't serve meat there, but I still ate my fair share of junk food, sweets, garbage. So in 1988, I graduated from the academy, and one really neat thing about that is that with a single parent trying to raise two children, it was very difficult. It was impossible for us to come up with the kind of money that it took for me to be there. But by the time I graduated, I ended up owing only $300 to the school before I could get my diploma. But I know that it was God's hand in that it was Him making a way for that to be possible. But even still, after I graduated, I never really still felt like I fit in anywhere after I left the academy. I was still feeling needy. I was looking for attention. I was still chubby. And I found a job in a nursing home, and I really enjoyed it. I loved taking care of the residents there. I loved just interacting with them and being with them. And, I found there were some girls there that worked with me that paid attention to me. And they would invite me to go out with them on the weekends. But the problem with that was that they liked to party. They liked to drink and just hang out with their friends. And so I started falling into that. And I started drinking and joining them in their parties. And eventually, when I turned 21, I would go to the bars with them. And, I just felt like I belonged with them. And then while I was there at the nursing home, I decided that I was going to get that weight off. I wasn't like fat, but I was pretty chubby. So I said, I'm going to get this weight off and I'm going to look right. So I went to this weight loss center. They told me, we can get you to lose 50 pounds in 13 weeks. And sure enough, they did it. I lost the whole 15 pounds in 50 pounds in 13 weeks. And I felt great. I felt I was on top of the world. I felt skinny, and people were watching me, but the thing is that they were looking at me. They were looking at Christ in me, because I had no relationship with Christ at that time. When I was in the academy, I felt at peace. I really felt like God was with me, but there was still an emptiness and a hole in me that I never really allowed Christ. I wanted him to be with me, but I never allowed him to fully be in my heart. I never fully submitted to him. So when I lost that weight, there was a male nurse at the nursing home that started to show some interest in me. And really no guy had ever really shown any interest in me before. So I was elated. I was so excited about this. And I was so needy that I allowed this relationship to really just be wrong. It was so off, because he showed so much attention and affection for me, and I just swallowed it up without even really paying attention to who he really was and whether we were compatible. And we started getting, more intimate. We started really doing things that we shouldn't be doing, and eventually I ended up getting pregnant. And at that point, I was terrified. I was completely terrified of having to tell Mom, because in my eyes, I did my very best to make sure that I was the good daughter, because my sister, she was always the scapegoat. She was always the one that was getting in trouble. So I just felt like I just couldn't tell Mom. And that, on top of the fact that I had just been accepted into the X-ray school, and at that time you couldn't be pregnant and go to X-ray school. I think they've changed the rules since then in a lot of places. But I was pregnant. I couldn't get into the school. I just didn't feel like I could tell my mom. So at that point, it was pretty easy for this guy to talk me into having an abortion. And I decided to go ahead and do it. And I had the abortion. And to this day, I never forget about that little baby. And I know that God forgives me, but for a long time I constantly asked God to forgive me and not really believe that he forgave me. And he did forgive me, and now I thank him. I say, I thank you, Father, for forgiving me, and I thank you for putting that forgiveness in my heart for this gentleman, and for me to forgive myself for doing such a horrible act. And just to let you know, I really wrestled with whether I should share this or not, but I thought, I really need to, because it's part of my story. And I want everybody to know that, God can heal your wounds, and God does forgive. And even though you can't forget it, he does forgive you. He forgives. Satan will try to tell you, you're wicked, you're so evil that he can't forgive such a horrible sin. But he can, and he does. And after that experience is when my weight actually began to skyrocket. I went from skinny to gaining the weight that I lost to gaining 30 pounds more of that weight. And I was just miserable. I felt horrible. I was still with the guy, but as I was gaining the weight, I was, less attractive to him. He found another girl, and she got pregnant, and I was devastated. I was completely devastated. And after that experience, I said, I can't do this anymore, and I left. I said, we can't have a relationship like this, especially when you're with another girl. And I left, and I think that eventually that's the experience that really did it for me, that really got me to understand, because I felt like God was was so comforting to me that he said, I'm with you. I forgive you for what you've done, and I'm going to be here for you, and I want you to walk in my ways, because I am the only one, God's saying to me, that can give you peace. And I finally believed it, and I was determined at that point to live like I believed that, to live like God loved me, and I was determined to get that weight off. So I went to Weight Watchers, and I was a dutiful Weight Watcher. I did a great job. I lost the weight. I lost a lot of weight, and I still felt an emptiness. I know that God was with me. I felt like he was with me, but I still felt like something wasn't right. I graduated from x-ray school. I got a job at an urgent care center, and the doctor that was there was great. In a lot of ways, I know that God even brought him in my life. There's just so many people that God has brought into my life to help me and to lead me along the way. And this particular doctor, he got me to walking. He loved walking. He was walking all the time, going outside. Let's go for a walk. So he'd pick me, he'd take me, and we'd just go walking. But when we were walking, I was like, oh, I just can't keep up with him. I just felt so unhealthy and so fat. And I just like, man, but still, I just didn't have the determination like I did to lose the weight at the time, to go and to lose the weight that I had regained. But I kept walking with him, and eventually I moved in with several girls. One of the girls that I worked with, she needed a housemate, and there were 2 other girls in there with her. So there was 4 of us moving into this house. And the one young lady that was with us, I got to talking to her, and at that point I was my heaviest, and I was telling her that I was a Seventh-day Adventist. And what she knew about Seventh-day Adventists were that they had a health message, and that they were supposed to be healthy and at a good weight. And here I was saying that I was a Seventh-day Adventist, and at 213 pounds, she was like, if you're an Adventist, how come you should be looking a little healthier? And at that point, I thought, it stung, but she said it in a way, believe it or not, she said it in a way that was very tactful, and it got me really to thinking about it, and thinking, you really need to do something. If you say you're a Christian, you say you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you say that you're walking with the Lord, you need to get that weight off. So this time, I prayed. I said, God, I need to get this weight off. But I didn't fully submit to him yet. But I was still at that point where I was determined once again to get that weight off. So I went to Weight Watchers again, and I started losing the weight, but I was losing it more slowly. And I think that's the best way. When you're losing weight, you've got to do it at a pace that your body can work with, and that you are more likely to keep it off that way. And as I was losing it, I was praying to God, and I said, I'm losing this weight. I'm feeling good. Father, please, I'm giving this whole issue to you. If you want me to be healthy, if you want me to represent you properly, I'm giving this to you, Father. Give me the strength, and give me the knowledge and the wisdom to do this properly. And as soon as I did that, things were happening like crazy. I met a gentleman that was a vegetarian. He was strict. No dairy products, no eggs, no nothing. And he was talking to me. He said, you really shouldn't be eating meat. And it was like, I shouldn't. I never even considered the idea that I shouldn't be eating meat. And he said, yeah, you need to be eating more healthfully. As a Christian, we need to show that our bodies are the temple of God, and to protect our bodies, and to build them up and help them and give them a chance to be healthy. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I never really totally dove into the idea of being a vegetarian even, but I thought about it more. And then another person came into my life, and he was a vegan. I was just like, wow, these people are coming out of the woodwork. So he was sharing a little more with me, and then he was giving me some ideas about how I could do it, and why it was going to be so good for me, and how I could be so healthy. And he had a friend, and she was a vegan, and she was sharing more with me. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. So I prayed more about it. I said, God, I just don't want to jump into this. I want to know how to do it. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to people to see me and say, there's a healthy young lady, and why is she? And I really wanted to represent God properly. So I decided, well, I'm going to try this. So I had a few vegan days here, and I'd have a few vegan days there, and finally I started getting into the habit of being a vegan, and then I prayed about it, and I went through my cupboards, and I threw away everything, not only things with meat in it, but anything that I thought was not healthy for me. I just totally cleared it out. I went shopping, restocked my cupboards, restocked my refrigerator, and thought, this is great. And instantly I was feeling results. I mean, within the next several days I was even feeling good, but then weeks later I had terrible acne on my face. I mean, it was gross. And that was another thing that I just felt really bad about, and it completely vanished. I was getting more energy. I was just really excited about life again. I was like, wow, this is just great. Super. But still there was still a hole in my heart. There was still an emptiness. I was getting closer to God. I was praying more. I was reading. I was studying my Bible more, and I still felt, I feel lonely. By this time I was 29 when I made that decision to be a vegan vegetarian, and I was still single. And I thought, I want to be able to share my life with somebody. So then I started just looking around, and I would even go on the internet, and it just wasn't working out for me. And finally I decided, after years of just being lonely, I prayed. I said, Father, if it is your will that I be single, that I be alone, if this is the best way that I can serve you, if this is the best way that I can do your work and do your will, I'm going to completely submit to you and accept this and do what you would have me to do. And it was so funny, because I don't think it was 2 weeks later that my now husband at the time, I met him, and we ended up the next year. I met him in 2001, and the following year we ended up getting married in 2002. And in 2003 I had my first little baby boy, Nicholas, and now I have 4 beautiful, healthy children, and I'm just so grateful for them, and so grateful for what God was able to do in my life when I completely submitted to Him and gave Him everything, gave Him all of my problems, all of my trials, and my loneliness, and my weight issues. And I'll tell you today, I'm not perfect. Like I'm struggling now. My weight still fluctuates now because of the past. After you allow your body to gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, it's going to fluctuate. And I still deal with the weight issues, but I try not to let it, totally encompass my life. I'm giving it to the Lord, and I'm letting Him still work on it. I just got to make some of these, small changes. Thankfully, I'm eating very healthy now, but I'm still, like I said in previous videos, I'm eating too many nuts, and I'm eating food that the kids are leaving left over. And, I'm eating a lot like the kids. I'm eating too many avocados and high fat. Even though they're good fat, they're still high fat foods. And vegan desserts, vegan cookies and things like that. And I just, my past, it creeps up on me sometimes. So I'm working on that. And I just pray that my testimony truly was just an encouragement to you, and that I was able to be able to share with you the way God has worked in my life, that it can be uplifting to you, and that you will, seek the Lord and help Him to give you that peace and that love. Completely submit yourself to the Lord. He wants us to be happy, and ultimately, my goal is to share the gospel with you, and sharing with you that Jesus is coming soon, and He wants us to be ready. And meanwhile, He wants us to have peace and joy in our lives. And I thank you just so much for watching, and I pray that will continue to be a blessing to you. Keep watching, and we look forward to hearing from you, sending us your comments. And until next time, live well and be strong. Bye.